Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's your boy D Black. All right, SmackDown tonight. It was. I don't even know what to say about SmackDown tonight. I mean, there's no build up. We have the Elimination Chamber, which is tomorrow. We have WrestleMania right around the corner, and there is zero build up. Wonder why the ticket sales are doing bad. All right, so SmackDown. We start off. Jey Uso. Apparently, he was attacked backstage. I'm assuming that it might have been the vision, the way things are working out throughout the SmackDown program. It could have been anybody and stuff. I'm just guessing that the fact is that there probably was a lot of complaining on the internet about Jey Uso winning the chamber. And so I think the match was changed, or it could have been the fact that, we knew somebody out of the division was probably going to be in the Elimination Chamber, which was supposed to be Bronson Reed. But since he got hurt and tore his bicep, at that moment they put Jey Uso in. So, and then tonight, things have changed here on SmackDown. But anyway, we get Drew McIntyre, coming out, um, saying he had nothing to do with anything about Jey Uso, being jumped. And he says that he tells nothing but the truth, but people think, that he's guilty, that he's not guilty, until proven innocent and stuff like that. I mean, basically, he's saying that, everybody, is trying to, get his title and everything, which is true, I mean, he's a world champion and everybody, everybody wants to hold the title and stuff. And as he's talking, then Nick Aldis comes out and tells Drew, that he told him not to, involve himself, in the show and everything. He tells Drew to go, go to his office, you know, because there's like about 25 guys in the back that, want to come out, and jump him and take him out. And he said that, hey, he's just an inch short from letting that happen. And then we get old Cody Rhodes to come out. And Cody Rhodes tells Drew, hey, you want to fight? Let's go it. Let's do it. And Drew says no. Then he tells Cody that he's no, well, he said that he was leaving because that's what he promised Nick Aldis, that he was going to do. And Cody says all he does, and telling Drew, all you do is run, like a little bitch when things get hot and stuff. And then all of a sudden, here comes Randy Orton, you know. Um, and then Randy Orton is like, saying what sucks about Jay, that it sucked about what happened to Jey Uso. Then he said that he's going to win the chamber, and then go to WrestleMania and, beat Drew and become the 15-time world champion. And then as he's talking, then out comes Trick Williams, and Trick Williams, saying that, he's the hottest thing, in wrestling, and he's calling himself, Trick Willie, and he's talking about, his lemon pepper steppers and stuff, are the best flavors on the menu. And then out comes Javon Evans, and Javon Evans is saying that he's going to win the chamber and everything, and he's going to go and beat Drew at WrestleMania and become like Randy Orton as far as being the youngest world champion, and stuff. And then LA Knight comes out and he starts saying his thing, and he's insulting everybody. He starts off, with saying that, he's the megastar and that he belongs, he's going to be the champion. He's calling everybody a moron, and he's just telling everybody that, he's going to go on and win the chamber and then go on to beat Drew in the in WrestleMania, and become the champion, and you know how he says what everybody's saying, you know, LA Knight, so and then as he was about ready to, as they were going to say LA Knight, then Trick Williams says, whoop that trick, and then LA Knight says, did you say whoop that trick? And Trick Williams says yes, and then they start the clashing and stuff, and then fighting and everything. And then Randy Orton looks over at Devon Evans, hits him with an RKO, and then he looks at Cody Rhodes, and they stare each other down. And then Randy Orton leaves the ring and stuff. And then we get a little segment with Tiffany, Stratton, and Oscar, and they ended up saying, Oscar saying that she's gonna, win the win the elimination chamber, as well as Tiffany Stratton saying that she's gonna win the elimination chamber and go on, you know, and defeat Jade Cargill and stuff, But then Oscar comes out and says that Tiffy time is over and that nobody's ready for Oscar and stuff. And then Tiffany says, "Hey, you want a match? Prove it." So there's a match that's supposed to be set up for them later on, for through the evening. Then we get the match with Solo Sikoa and Uncle Howdy. Now this match, was, I guess it was brewing because for the lantern and everything that Solo Sikoa, took from Uncle Howdy and the Wyatt Six and stuff like that. So the match was going on. It was pretty kind of decent. I mean, it wasn't really that mad and stuff, but still, is nothing leading up to WrestleMania. I mean, that card is gonna suck, man. I mean, they only got 4 matches, and 2 of them we already know what they are, and that's gonna be Liv Morgan and Stephanie Valkyrie, and we got CM Punk and Roman Reigns, and then whoever wins the chamber, on both sides as far as the men is concerned, and and as far as the women are concerned and stuff. So, you're gonna have Jade, you know, um, fighting somebody. Drew's gonna be fighting somebody. Who we don't know yet until after the chamber and stuff. So, and then we got the Vision. Oh, and during this match, um, Howdy wins. I mean, Uncle Howdy wins with the Sister Abigail, and he defeats Solo Sikoa. And as he's going to get the ladder, um, the Vision attack him. I'm not the Vision, but the MFTs attack him, and they take back the lantern and stuff. So I don't understand why Solo thinks he needs this lantern and stuff. None of it makes sense. It's just not making any sense. So you know, I have no idea. But I'll be glad when it's over. The Wyatt Six, I mean, they need to break up because they're not really doing anything, make anything exciting and stuff. As far as even Solo Sikoa, I mean, he's a damn good wrestler and stuff, and I like Solo Sikoa and stuff. He does bring excitement, but the MFTs, man, I don't know. I mean, you got to show me something better. They got to work it out better. Um, Triple H got to do better because this all it's sucking real bad. But anyway, Uncle Howdy wins the match and stuff, and then we get the Vision with Nick Aldis and Paul Heyman is wanting Nick to put Logan Paul, in the chamber, and Nick says it's not, he doesn't have any control over everything, and then he says, that could be interesting and stuff. So he walks off and say, hey, let me talk to somebody, and I'll get back with them and stuff. So we have that going. Then we have Yo Sky and Rhea Ripley, and Rhea Ripley saying that, she's gonna win, the elimination chamber and stuff like that. And then Jade comes out, and basically tells Rhea to, focus on herself and stuff, So and then when she says after the match, well, since they're having a tag team match for the title, she tells her that, hopefully that she doesn't get hurt, during the match and stuff. So, but anyway, Jacob comes out. I mean, well, then you get the backstage promo with Jacob Fatu, and he's talking to Nick Aldis, saying that, there's a Drew problem, and for him to put him in the chamber, you know, so he can win and then take care of the Drew McIntyre situation. Drew McIntyre problem. Nick Aldis says, let him think about it and everything, and just as like he told Paul Heyman and Logan Paul that he'll think about it and he has to make a few calls. and stuff. And then we get Tiffany Stratton against Oscar, who it should have been. And then Oscar said that she's gonna, rest and everything, that she didn't want to risk anything, so Kairi Sane would be the one that Tiffany Stratton, would face. And so they got the match. The match was actually pretty decent. I mean, there was a few spots, that were pretty bad from Tiffany Stratton. I mean, even Kyrie, she made a few of herself and stuff. Glad nobody actually got hurt while doing the match and stuff. But anyway, and I had to give Chelsea Green her kudos because she was there. She was at ringside, doing the commentating. Then her and Tiffany got face to face and stuff. And then Kyrie ended up jumping on Chelsea Green, and she was bouncing back, and that was kind of funny. But anyway, still, Tiffany Stratton, she hits the prettiest moonsault on Kairi Sane, and she wins. And then we have division with Nick Aldis again. Nick Aldis saying yes, Logan Paul would be in the chamber only if he can beat Jacob Fatu. So that's a match that was set for the main event for tonight in the show. Then we have the Miz, who talked himself into a match with FEMI. And before the match started, Miz was just trying to talk his way out of the match. He was trying to tell Overfemi that he could be somebody like like a John Cena or Undertaker, and take him up under his wings and everything, and show him the ropes and get the people to chant his name and everything and stuff like that. And then the crowd started chanting over and stuff, and then Oba tells the Miz, he said he doesn't need him for none of that. He said the people are going to chant his name without him, and then they started chanting, his name, Oba, 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 and stuff. So, and that ended up like that, and he ended up destroying the Miz and everything. I mean, he beat the tar out of the Miz, So, and Oba Oba wins that match. And then we got Carmelo Hayes and the Dragunov, and the Dragunov is telling Carmelo Hayes that, he's not ready, to face him, tonight and stuff. And then Carmelo Hayes is telling him, hey, look, you were promised a match. Why isn't he ready and stuff like that? But I guess he just feels that he wasn't ready to have that match, which makes zero sense to me because he's been trying to come out there and get that, the belt ever since he lost it to Camelo and stuff. And then Camelo told him like, hey, this was your chance, and if you don't, take, this shot, he may not get another shot at the title again, which is possibly true. And then we get the match. Carmelo Hayes goes out to the ring, and then Matt Cardona comes out. And that match, I guess it was a pretty decent match, actually, really. I mean, Matt Cardona, I mean, he's pretty good in the ring. Even when he was over in NXT, he was good over there in NXT. I mean, not NXT, I'm sorry, in TNA. And he brought he took Carmelo. They looked good in the ring. But Carmelo Hayes hits the first 48 and wins the match. So, and now, I kind of want to know what's in that box too. They have R-Truth doing a little something and everything about, ESPN and subscribing to ESPN and all that other stuff and everything. But I mean, it's crazy because how they're doing it. And then Kit Wilson comes out, he looks at all of them talking and everything, and then he calls them all toxic, you know, and then they all start laughing at him and everything. So, and then then Cody Rhodes, backstage tells, Jacob Fatu for what it's worth that he hopes that he wins. And then Sami Zayn comes out, he looks Cody in the face, they shake hands and everything. Then he approaches Jacob Fatu, and he asks how Jay Uso is doing, and Jacob tells him, that he's not doing good and stuff like that. And then Sammy goes on to says that he thinks that it could have been Jacob, and then he starts explaining why. He's saying because Jay won the match. As Jay got beat up in the back, now he's running to Nick Aldis and trying to get into a match to where he can be, not a match, but he's asking Nick Aldis to put him into the chamber and stuff. And then Sammy goes on to start saying what happened to him when he was, when him, Jacob Fatu, and who was in that match with him? I know it was Jacob Fatu. Oh, no, Jacob Fatu and Sami Zayn. I can't remember who else was in the match with him and stuff like that. But he goes on to tell Sammy that when Drew hit the mat, it was Cody. It was Cody that was in the ring, and he said that when Drew came, and started laying out claymores, he said everybody got a claymore except for you, Sami Zayn. And stuff. And he told Sammy that it looked like Drew was trying to help him, win the match. But in reality, Drew, I mean, Sami Zayn, he messed that up himself because um, he haluna kicked Drew McIntyre, and he fell into Cody's hands, and Cody gave him the crossroads and put him down and won the match and stuff. And then Sammy gets mad and everything. He starts tearing up stuff and everything. So that that was kind of funny and stuff. Then we got the match with Candice LeRae and Jordynne Grace. This match, I mean, it was okay. I mean, I don't know what Johnny Gargano was doing. I mean, just laying around looking crazy and stuff. I mean, at one point he was just laying across, the announcer's desk and everything. It's about how I felt throughout the show, because that's how boring it was. The show wasn't really all that great. But anyway, during the match as it's going, then Johnny he gets up and he starts walking off like a zombie that's having problems and stuff, or somebody like he's like sleepwalking, whatever the case may be. But I don't know what's going on with this. It's kind of silly to me and stuff. Actually, really makes zero sense, you know. But anyway, Jordynne Grace wins the match with a pump handle German suplex and stuff. So that's that one. And then we get the tag team championship. We have Nia Jax and Lash Legend against Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. This match actually was a very good match. I enjoyed the match. It was pretty great. It was back and forth, back and forth. The ladies were hitting real hard and stuff. And I can't complain about this match. I mean, it was pretty good. It actually was probably one of the better matches of the night. And I just have to give a congratulations to Nia Jax and Lash Legend for being the new women's tag team champions and stuff. And I knew Rhea had to lose this title because I think she is going to win the chamber to go up against Jade Cargill. It's going to be very interesting to see. I'm thinking between her and Raquel Rodriguez is who's going to win, the chamber. And then we get a segment with Charlotte Flair looking all sad and everything, and Alexa Bliss is saying that she's sad and upset because she's in the chamber and not her and stuff. And then she says no and everything. And then Julia and then Kiana James comes out and they make a little bit of fun of Charlotte Flair and everything because Kiana James and Alexa Bliss both are in the chamber match. And then Jay Cargill tells Alexa and Kiana, good luck. And then Nick Aldis comes out, in the segment, and Nick Aldis is telling the MFTs, that next week that there's going to be a number one contenders match, for their tag team title match because they haven't been defending the title, since they've had it. So that's how that's gonna go, which is good. And then we have a little segment with Aleister Black, and Randy Orton. And Aleister Black is, just talking stuff, and Randy Orton is talking about, you know, about how he feels, and about the voices that are in his head and everything, and that, you know, that there's a switch, that's in his head that he can flip on and flip off, if he want. And he tells Aleister Black to be careful, what he asked for. Then tells Aleister Black after the chamber, that he's going to be coming out. He's going to find him, and will be coming after him, and then just walks off. And Aleister Black says, of course, because that's what they were looking for him to do. That was in their plan to have Cody Rhodes come to him, because I think Aleister Black thinks, Randy Orton needs to go back to the dark side, and I think that's what's going to happen soon. Then we get the main event. We have Logan Paul and Jacob Fatu. The match was it was pretty interesting. It actually turned out a pretty good physical match. I mean, I can't believe the athleticism of Jacob Fatu, and we all know that Logan Paul looks very good in the ring. He's going to go far. And I think, if Triple H does it right, both of these guys can go far, ahead of themselves. I think they can put some good years in, some good matches in, with some good storylines and stuff, you know. And so in this match, at one point, don't know who this guy is in this, black hood, and then Jacob Paul goes out because he tries to hit. Well, actually, did kick Austin Theory, in the head, and then Logan Paul jumps out of the ring and he hits the guy. I mean, he really decks him and stuff. Then pulls the mask off on him, and still unrecognizable. So don't nobody know, who this person is and stuff. And then Logan Paul hits Jacob Fatu with a low blow. Um, he does a frog splash, and and then he gets the win over Jacob Fatu. So Logan Paul is going on to the chamber, which is very predictable. We knew that was going to happen. Somebody out of the division had to be in it, and I knew it wasn't going to be Austin Theory and stuff. So righteously, it had to be Logan Paul. So with that, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Don't forget to hit that bell for notification and stuff. So thank you for watching. God bless. Deuces, and I'll see you on the next video.